I saw this so many times people are putting a possessive when it's just a plural. Right? So what's going on is we know that there's something like this is the S is just a grammatical item, so we want to do something to show that we know this, but be very wary of doing that. He went to sell the tusk, T-U-S-K. That one should have been plural. Become a priest through this means. So he did this to, he says, what is it? Finally, the fact that Nana wanted to become a priest through this means pose some problems. Let me come again. Finally, Nana Amwani become a priest through this means posed some problems. Became one.
Posed.
What about these means? Not this means. These means. So it's more than one mean, quote unquote. So through these means, this is what we mentioned before that, you know, to some of us it sounds similar. We had an issue with this as well. What's going on?
Syllabic. They want to make it sense. So when you get into the margin of the book, because broken wrongly, but you cannot add the section to make sense when you put that aside.
Okay.
And pin, and just
the S becomes.
yeah, and the subsequent.
So for one, I was asking that, what word is this? Subsequent. And I looked down and said, So if that's an issue, what is the issue with that? Where should they be broken? Where should they be split?
You have to break it where you can pronounce it properly, and then there's other side should also be able to pronounce. I make intro dark, then the shin will be intro.
Exactly, so it should be broken at the syllable boundary. Be careful of that. A few of you did that same thing, so it should be broken at the syllable boundary. He recounted Nana Amwani's achievement over the 40 years. Achievements, right? The speaker underscored the importance of historiography of shrine as constituting an essential past. Again, the speaker underscored the importance of historiography of shrine. Right. or if you want to specify the shrine or a shrine, there has to be something with that. And then here there was an issue with not doing apostrophe S on several occasions for possession. So it said Nana Amwani birth, not Amwani's birth. This one, now we need this. Nana Amwani's birth. Nana Amwani trading and the impact, so all of those, we need that. Let's do this. What's wrong here?
The given.
So does it sound similar to anyone? Does this one sound similar to given? Like to your ears, does it sound similar?
Yes, my sound is.
Feel free, there's no persecution for saying it sounds similar.
Oh no, it sounds similar.
It sounds
Because
similar.
I've several times on Facebook, social media, I see the two interchangeably used. Instead of ing, it's en. Yeah, so it sounds similar. I think maybe it could also be a Ghanaian proverb or something, but I've seen it on several occasions.
Right.
Myself, I do make that mistake sometimes.
So I see this again in the Ghana context. I don't see it in other contexts. But again, this is, you know, when it sounds similar, then you'll see that similar sound reflected in the writing. So this is giving, this is given, given. Now, there's another one, which is non-formal. Given. He was giving me something. I was given, right? That one sounds similar to this one, right? But even the spelling of that, it's a non-standard or non-academic spelling, but even that one has a set way of spelling, right? Do we have any issue with the use of this one?
Tribal, yes.
What's the issue?
I think it's now it's seen by maybe, I don't know the right way to use, but Pan-Africanist or in academia as not being right because it was more used during the colonial time to address primitive people and all that. So now they're more tilted to using ethnic groups rather than using the tribes. Yeah.
Okay. Are there tribes in Europe? So the Welsh tribe, the British tribe, the Irish tribe, the French tribe, the German tribe, the Italian tribe. Why are you laughing? Why are you smiling? Hmm? That one is not a tribe? Okay.
When you go in the tribe, those things are not played out. Looking at the bigger picture.
Okay. What about Bosnians and Serbians? They had ethnic cleansing. Are those tribes? Have you ever heard them in the news being mentioned as
That's
tribes?
right. No, it's never done.
So there are value judgments that come along with selections of words. Let me ask you something else. Are there huts in Europe? Huts, H-U-T, huts. So tribe is a English word. So you would think since it's coming from England, there has to be something like that that they knew of, right? So we would think it should be able to logically apply to something in Europe. It shouldn't be exclusively applied to Africa if it's their own word, right? What about huts? Are there huts in Europe? You hardly hear of it.
I want to believe there are huts.
Okay. Are there jungles in Europe?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And they don't talk about it. It's not represented in the literature.
Okay. Okay, so there's more forest in Europe by percentage than there is in Africa, but we hear jungle applied selectively to Africa. Are there chiefs in Europe?
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm getting you to do is start to think about why in the African context they select ones that usually you have this thing of diametric opposites. One thing is good, the other one has to be bad. So the one that they're going to apply to you as Africans is going to be the bad one. Even if they have the same thing in Europe, they're going to choose a good one for themselves. So if ethnic group is good and tribe is bad, then guess who's going to be a tribe? And guess who's going to be an ethnic group? If a house is good and a hut is bad, guess who's going to have a house and guess who's going to have a hut? If a king or emperor is good and a chief is, let's not say bad, it's lesser or lower, guess who's going to be a king and guess who's going to be a chief? Even when the European may have a smaller territory than the African, right? So you had a king of Belgium. How big is Belgium? And you have indigenous rulers here who have, you could fit 30, 40, 50 Belgians inside of their territory, but this guy is a chief, right? So again, you know, this broaches the subject of the lack of objectivity in some of these things. These are very subjective decisions that are being made intentionally because of the psychological effects that it has on them, and then the psychological effects it will have on you. Your summaries: science and oppression, Eurocentrism in the social sciences.
We were so happy, so we took a decision to present one and then present the other one with your Highness permission.
We were to do two.
Yes. But there was so much pressure with other
Timelines to you.
Can you print yours after class? You must think I'm a nice person. I don't know who gave you that impression.
I was thinking, based on the comments, you were making the fact that beyond just the meaning, there is a kind of reaction that may take place. I remember once we were going for a football match, and when the team from my place came, we were all blacks. And they say the people from the tribe has come. Something they comment like this. And we were so proud of what they say. And we said, yes, we are here. We are, my town is Barcelona, we said we have come, the tribe from And they were amazed because we just admitted to be called, you know, and we knew the meaning of tribe. We knew they were thinking we were inferior. But they said, yes, that's okay, we are here. So then, and we played the match and we won. You know, but to some extent, not that we agreed to be called like that, but we were trying to give a different message. But I don't know how, you know, because we are trying to find something bigger. So I don't know how this kind of attitude can also help out to.
Yeah, this is it's a good thing you're bringing up. So you have, you know, in the language itself, you have things that are built in that are in English accorded levels of respect you know, that are seen as being good and bad. And let me give you some examples, and I'll see how well you understand English. If I say it's a black cat crossing your path, is that supposed to be good or bad?
Is.
Hmm?
This is.
Is it supposed to be good or bad? A black cat has crossed your path. Is that supposed to be good or bad? Black cat. Okay. You don't understand?
Yeah, I didn't understand the context you're using.
It's like the same, it's like the expression.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
A black cat has crossed your path. Okay. And I'll be asking you, do you understand that to be a good omen or a bad omen? Okay. If you see someone in the movies and one is dressed in all white and the other one is dressed in all black, what are you to assume?
The one in black.
That's the question, you know, what point is the video?
If I say it was a black day, what am I saying?
Bad West Day.
What if I say for a beautiful and black future? What do I do? For a beautiful and black future. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yes.
You need to contrast.
Right. So this is what I'm coming to. Now, is it universal to see black as being something that is negative or bad? Is that universal? It's universal. How many people think it's universal?
I think it's not. I think it's not.
You think it's not? Okay. What information do you have one way or the other? Do you have any information that it's not?
Personally, I choose. That. Like, here's a black beauty. And so I put my inspiration from that. Black beauty.
Okay. So if you just say beauty by itself, is there any connotation that comes along with that? Without saying black specifically? Does that mean beauty just without any modifier or any adjective, that's something other than black? And you need to specify, say it's beauty, however, let me let you know the type of beauty it is. Okay, so let me give you some information, and this is why we need African studies, because Europeans present their views as universal, and they are not, and they have not been. So if you go to the Songhoy language, this is in Mali, they have a word called Bibi. What do you think that word is? What do you think? How would you translate the word Bibi? Any guesses? Black, very good. For those who also understand Chi, you'll see that that same word is found in Abibi Mai, Abibi Fo, Abibi Drew. So Songhoy, you had the ancient Ghana Empire, Mali Empire, Songhoy Empire, this is the third. And they still have the language, and in the language, anytime they want to mention something powerful, they say Bibi. They say Wanya Bibi, that's the powerful sun. If they want to say the purest water, they refer to it as Hari Bibi, that's pure water. So they're crossing the Niger. The elders will say, we've gotten to the middle, that's where people aren't bathing, aren't washing, this is where you get the purest water. They say, I know Hari Bibi, give me the black water, right? If they want to refer to the most fertile soil, they refer to it as Sajza Bibi. If they want to refer to a powerful amulet, every single thing in the society, if they want to mention it has a good connotation, they refer to it as black. So we've already debunked the universal, right? We have a counterexample to universal. Universal means just what it says, 100%. Now, let's go also back in time, that you had in ancient Kemet. Kemet means land of the black people, and the idea of perfection and completion was Kim, which is black. And it's a similar idea in this. They have a story in Songhoy that there was a jackal that wanted to get a talisman and kept going back to the one who was making it. First time he said, give me a white one. Gave him a white one. It got dirty. He said, look, it's spoiled. All right, give me a red one. Give him a red one. It got dirty. All right, blue one, green one, every type. And then eventually he says, you know what, give me a black one. He said that's what you should have asked for from the beginning. That's the one that's complete, right? That's the one that, so when you talk about adding various colors, right? When you get them all together in terms of materials, eventually you get to blackness. So that's the idea of blackness as completion, blackness as perfection, as the ultimate. If you look at the deities in ancient Kemet, such as Asar, Asar is depicted as black. The majority of the deities are depicted as black. Marco Polo, in going to India, also documented that for them, all of their deities are black and all of their demons are white. Right? So basically what you have is the world has been turned upside down. It hasn't always been this, but since we are locked in a 500-year box, we think that what it is now is as it's always been. And that's the whole point of not letting you know anything outside of the 500-year box. I hope you understand. So even if you have an inclination to think, I don't think that that's universal. We don't even have the information to be able to give you counterexamples. But as soon as you know African history before Europeans happened to stumble upon Africa, once you can read the writing that your own African ancestors wrote, there's a quote by Dr. Jacob Carruthers, we mentioned before, where he says, African champions must break the link that ties African ideas to European ones and listen to the voice of the ancestors without European interpreters.
Okay.
Let me come again. African champions must break the chain that links African ideas to European ones and listen to the voice of the ancestors without European interpreters. Does everyone understand that, or should I say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have a question.
Hmm?
This part of the struggle, giving a different meaning to those concepts, or those concepts should disappear. Those
Which
concepts
concept?
like Negro,
Mhm.
like black, it's elaborated by the colonizers. So, I was saying, for the future, black and beautiful, and giving a resignification to the word black.
Mhm.
But I know that the word black is was not within our domain.
Mhm.
So how do we deal with this kind of concept? I'm asking because
Mhm.
it's important for me.
Yeah.
The place I'm coming from,
Mhm.
that's what we are doing. We're
Yeah.
trying to give a different meaning
Right.
to this conception that we know belong to the oppressor, and we are trying to resignify them.
You found a similar thing with the N-word of places like the U.S. and other places where they're using it in rap and they're calling it and saying it's a term of endearment. So this is the thing. There's a proverb that basically goes that the dog does not prefer bones to meat. It's just that no one ever gives him meat. The dog does not prefer bones to meat. It's just that no one ever gives him meat. So if all you have to select from is English or Spanish or whatever the case may be, the best you can do is sift through the vomit. Right? So someone has vomited, now you're going to look for edible pieces of food in it. Right? Now another option would be going to the garden, right? Because there was a garden and the garden is still there and it's still accessible to us. And that's the original source of this food that came out as vomit. So that's another option. Now we can do this, right? And sift it around and then do it in the shape of Africa and say, look, we've done something. Or we could go to the garden and get something that's more, that has more sustenance for us. I hope you understand it. We can go and retrieve the recipe that our ancestors wrote. They wrote it down so that we can access it. They inscribed it in stone so that we can access it. So I think for those who don't have access to the garden or have been told that it doesn't exist, then this is what they would be limited to. If you know that the garden exists, you can choose. And you can even have a division of labor. You say, you know what? Those of us who are here, we're going to go to the garden, we're going to read the recipe, we're going to start cooking. But you have another job. We're going to send you and sift through the vomit and try to find spices, African spices in there. I hope you understand. So either one could be useful in the activity. If that's all you have, then that's what you will have to do.
One more question.
Feel free.
I think here there is expressing the truth for a white man. In Tamala, in the family is Siliminga. When the white person is in Tamala, you call them Siliminga, they don't like it. And they know the white person. So are they also feeling in the same way when you call them white?
I think it depends a lot on the context. You understand? So, you know, the way in which something is said can have an impact. Now, let's go back to a time where everyone considered black to be beautiful and there wasn't any need. So again, you know about the Black Madonna and Child? I mean, right, has anyone ever heard of this? Right? So if you go throughout Europe, you'll have over 400 to 500 images of Jesus being black, of Madonna being black, that's Mary being black, right? Because they got it straight from Set, so-called Isis, and Heru, which was the son, so-called Horus. So all throughout Europe, they all had the idea that black is the best thing, black is divinity, black is wonderful. Now, they started to feel some way about it, specifically Pope Alexander VI, right? And what he decided to do is said, you know what? We're white. Why are we worshiping images that don't look like us? So he got his so-called illegitimate son, Caesar Borgia, who was known for fratricide, who was known for incest, who was known for mass murder and so many other things. And he got this Caesar Borgia as the image. He commissioned various artists, you know, the ones you've heard of, Da Vinci, then Michelangelo, all of these, to make images that look white. Now, if you go to Europe today, you go to Spain, you go to Portugal, you go to Czechoslovakia, all over Europe, France, you will find the original black images. So this is again to the universal thing, right? It wasn't even universal amongst Europeans, right? So they made a decision because they felt, and I'm coming to your point, they felt some way about everything black is wonderful, everything white is terrible, white is death, right? So let's change the world upside down. The original maps in the world were south-up maps. If you look up the Turin Papyrus map, Turin, Italy is where they split and took it to. The original map is south-up. That's the oldest map in the history of the world. And if you go to Kemet, other maps, they're all south-up. And as a matter of fact, the word for east, Yabit, is left. So picture Somalia, Kenya, that's on your left-hand side of the map, right? The word for west was right, that's Iminet, right? So picture Dakar, Senegal, Ghana, all of this is on your right-hand side. The word for south was up. They refer to it as Shamal, that's upper Kemet. You had Tambu, that's lower Kemet, that's to your back, and that's lower, right? So every single thing in their orientation told you that east is on your left, that's where the sun is rising. And it's obvious because here's the equator. So if you're looking towards the equator, this is the side that the sun is rising to, right? And that's also their origin, right? So if you're looking at west, this is Dakar. So what I'm getting at is, at some point in time, you had a very arbitrary decision that all of the maps throughout the entire course of human history, going back 4,500 years, 4,500 years that was documented and written, doesn't make us feel good. So very subjectively, remember our words, very subjectively they said, we're going to do something that is arbitrary, that makes us feel good. We'll put Europe on top, right? And now, if we ask you, why is the North of map universal? If all we know is the 500-year box, we will say yes. It's always been like this. But that's the reason why we don't know anything about Africa, and we're taught everything about Europe. So that's a bit of a sidebar. I think we get the point. But yeah, so in terms of these terms, that's what I would say to that. Right? You can look at your own terms. You can see what was the original concept, what was the original term, or we can just be stuck with English and Spanish and Portuguese and everything else and try to spin it in some type of way that it doesn't want to spin. Alright. Okay. That spiritual belief and practices. Spiritual belief practices. Some of them are mainly spelling, so. His father was a great hunter who hunted across other ethnicities. His father was a great hunter who hunted across other ethnicities. The issue with that, because you're all looking up at this guy, it makes it seem like he's hunting people from other ethnicities. His father was a great hunter who hunted across other ethnicities, right? I would say ethnicities, apostrophe territories, perhaps, or lands or something. I think that's the idea. Or perhaps he was hunting across other ethnicities. Got you. Got you. Okay, highlighting that the work falls into a social history. The work falls into a social history. It makes it seem like the work itself is falling into a social history. I would say perhaps falls into the category of social history or of a social history. Nana Amweni was born into a family of hunters in 1870 in northeastern Ghana. Nana Amweni was born into a family of hunters in 1870 in northeastern Ghana.
No.
I think northeastern should
Okay, the issue is that it's a bit of what's called an anachronism. That means that you are saying something out of the time context. It wasn't called Ghana at that point in time. So to make that clear that you understand that, you could say in what is now northeastern Ghana, or you can refer to it by whatever. Right? Right? It wasn't called Ghana. Right? And even the original Ghana was not called Ghana, it was referred to as Wagadu. Yeah. So the Arabs who went there referred to it by the title of the rulers. So you had Magan as the title. It's some like war king, something like that. So Magan Jata, it would be like saying Obama's country, or Tony Blair's land, or something like that. What else? Nana Amweni joined his father's hunting spree and killed elephants. I put in hunting trade or profession or something of that nature. Was a bad precedent he set. Precedent, yes. Precedent. We have this again. Sir.
First was, it has one sound, so you can't see how
Nana Amweni was one of Ghana's long-serving traditional priests. One of Ghana's long-serving traditional priests. Priests and longest serving traditional priests. Rules of succession, which stated that the older person in the family, that should be oldest person in the family, he as well popularized the guinea corn. He also popularized. What about the term illiterate? Is there any issue with the term illiterate? Even though he himself wasn't illiterate. Everyone's like, what's wrong? So non-literate tends to be preferred as less pejorative. Non-literate. So you, non-literate, right? So you're getting the information, you're saying what it is, but it has less of a pejorative connotation. He also played a critical role in the formation of female cults. He also played a critical role in the formation of female cult to give the women training. Right, you're missing an article of a female cult. What about the term cult? Is there any issue with that? No, of a female cult. But I'm asking now, even the term cult, is there any issue with that? So if you say the Shia cult, the Sunni cult, the Catholic cult, Presbyterian cult, you understand? Again, these are words that have value judgments built into it. Now you can embrace the value judgment and say, yes, we have cults. And take that however far it takes you. But yeah. When Nana Amoni was born, her mother gave him a Gonja identity. His father, who was called Manfri, and a warrior and a renowned hunter, resisted slavery. His father, who was called Manfri, and a warrior and a renowned hunter, resisted slavery.
I think he said food. Yeah. And he says slavery.
Right, so we have who was called Manfri. So what I did is, after Manfri, I did a comma, was a warrior and a renowned hunter. So who was called Manfri was a warrior and a renowned hunter who resisted slavery. So the who would come again there. Another important commodity that was traded alongside the slaves. Is there any issue with the term slaves? Or do we embrace it and say, yes, we're slaves? Right? So enslaved people, enslaved Africans. So to use the terminology, slaves is seen as very dehumanizing again. So you get dehumanized in your life, now even in your death, we're going to dehumanize you again. So enslaved people. Salaga deteriorated and could not gain its economic potential. Could not achieve its economic potential. The Zongo areas of Salaga was inhabited.
Where?
Very good. The conquest, that's again apostrophe. Okay, so let me return these. Vince, Gertrude. Bismarck, Kwame, Wilhelmina, Miller, Isaac, Bonaventure, Echo, Sandra, does anyone here not have a European name? You have? Is your last name?
Yes, that one is Khan.
Okay, is it an indigenous name or?
Well, I think you will have some European
not.
connection.
It is not, don't try to. It is not, can is not an
If you're in Senegal, it would be. But we're not in Senegal.
In fact, this year, by the end of the year, I changed my name. No, I think I have
To change it legally, I have friends who've changed their names legally.
If you go to court, it's like you are still following an European establishment. You can make yourself to be known, and then that should stand.
What about that?
But I mean,
The document, I
if
think
you
I
want
read
all
what
documents will still apply to you.
But the
No, you see, amongst us now, we know that she's a fiasco.
That is a
But on her
construction.
papers, Christabel and Jane.
So she's still Christian, but that's what they know else. Even though the people on those you are with know you exactly. What about the other things you do? Because you go to school, you use the one
I'm not sure in terms of the legal status of the ex. I think he did do that legally, but I'm not entirely sure. He also, after the pilgrimage, he started to go by El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. When he went to Nigeria, they call him Amawale, which is child come home, literally. But I'm not sure about the legal status of any of those. He was born Malcolm Little, but we all know him as Malcolm X.
Is that your original name?
Is my name my original name? Yes. Yeah.
And
So-
Nigerian?
No. African. I get that question a lot. And this is one I actually want to do a paper on this, myself and one of our graduate assistants, Nana Yao, also Roland. For African Studies Association of Africa, we want to deal with African names, in general. And usually when you read books about African names, it talks about African names as they were 300 years ago, and not what we're talking about right now. What you find is, generally on the continent, many places in the continent, you have people who have their first name as a European name, and their last name perhaps as an African name, or both names European, or perhaps one name that comes from their ethnic group, whatever. Want to document that. And then also look at various places in the diaspora. So for me, my parents, they changed their names, and I was born with an African name, so I've never had a European name. And I want to contrast that, because sometimes where you have Africans in the diaspora, they'll have one name from Senegal, another name from Tanzania, one name from Mali, another name from South Africa. And what the topic is going to be is what our names say about the current state of Pan-Africanism, right? So part of the rationale for doing it in that way is an understanding that we're all exactly. So it's very intentional. It's not, oh, I made a mistake. I could get 5 names from Asante, but I'm trying to say something like Sekou Nkrumah or something like that. It's a political statement. But sometimes you have people who will, they're in their 20s or 30s, they decide to change their name, and they may only change it in a social circle. So, you know, when I'm here, call me Kwame, whatever. But all of my documents, right, it's sort of a split identity. When I'm here, I'll do this, and it's kind of like, you know, I'll kind of play at it. But when it comes for real time, all my documents, all my mortgage, my everything else, that's going to be here. Here I find it tends to be, to some degree, the opposite, because you have Fiedin. So if you go to your, wherever you come from, people will not be calling you John or Bob or Sandra. So it's like we're playing at the European thing. So it's like a thin veneer of Europeanness with an African, you know, core. There sometimes, and it's not 100% of the time, it's a thin veneer of Africanness, but it has a European, you know, this is the one I'm serious about. But then you have other cases where you have people who, and I'll tell you from there, that you have continental Africans who's, they're both, their first name and last name are European. They've never had an African name. People there will never believe you until they come here and actually meet people. Like I know someone, Harry Sawyer, he's never had any type of African name.
I have a classmate, Cecilia Jones.
Mm.
And you always laugh at her. Cecilia Jones.
Right. But then, you know, so then you have people here with entirely European names that never had an African name. But even when you do have an African name, it tends to be both are coming from my own ethnic group. It's not a very Pan-African type of orientation. If I'm Akan, I'll have an Akan name, right? Even if I have, you know, parentage from one or other, I'll still have, generally speaking, one, right? From where you inherit from, generally, yeah, that's how it will work. You know, so if I'm from the Congo, I have a Congo name. And then on that side, you know, you have people who are born entirely with African names. Of course, you have people who are born entirely with European names. So basically, I just want to go into all of those dynamics, all the different variables that you have. And I think it will be very interesting.
But I'm against the construction that if you want to change your name to reflect your Africanness, you have to go to a court to swear an affidavit.
For the document.
Which means we are still not decolonizing the construction.
Would you be decolonizing the deconstruction by having documents in the first place? Or retaining any of those documents?
It's like you are giving legitimacy to those things, but let people within your, like people...
What I'm saying is that if you have those documents, is that not giving legitimacy to those things? You have a birth certificate.
So we should leave things as it is.
I know someone who in the U.S. he, you know, they had their child at home, and they didn't give their child a birth certificate. Then they wanted to repatriate. You know, so it was, you know, the mother, the father, and the child. But because the child wasn't documented, the child couldn't get a passport. The child couldn't. So there are rewards and punishments for any of those types of decisions that you make, and that's how they're able to perpetuate the colonization is, all right, there are benefits that come from being colonized, quote unquote, and there are punishments that we will inflict upon you for not allowing yourself to be colonized. I definitely understand the point, and at the same time, the point goes that if you are retaining any of those documents, there's something, so it's not necessarily a thing that you are entirely free by making that decision, but it's saying that I'm making a step in a particular direction. And I think that for some, it's more of a focus on direction and trajectory than it is on I've reached the destination, I'm done, right? So if you make this step, your children will make another step, as opposed to, all right, let me just stay where I am, right? Then where's the trajectory? They may even say, all right, well, you didn't go in any direction, let me just go further away, let me go down, swim to the bottom of the river, for our analogy that we and expect to get the breath of life.
In my place, I would be one of the few cases with this phenomenon of Miller Hernandez Diaz, which is not African and it's not Colombian. It's local form. It's very much Spanish. My point is, I'm one of the few cases, but we have so many other people around, and they are Lukumi, Carabalí, Balantas, Mina, Samboni,
Mhm.
but those are surnames.
Mhm.
Those are surnames. At
Mhm.
least in the documentation, everything.
Mhm.
But we will never even try to change the name because we believe that it's like going against our parents.
Mhm.
We will not even try. We will never
Mhm.
even think about that because it's like
Mhm.
going against. Even I thought once about changing because mine is the three are totally European, but we think that it's going against our parents. So I just, yeah.
Mhm.
That is the reality. I would be one of the few cases in my place with this very peculiar name.
Mhm. Mhm.
In Tamale, they call me Tia.
Mhm.
Tia is three.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
when I came there, it was difficult for them to say Hernandez or Milan, so they finally gave me the name Tia.
Mhm. Like the plant tree. Okay. Mhm. That's interesting.
When I went to Colombia, I was telling the people that my name now is Tia. I couldn't keep it because Tia in Spanish is auntie.
Mm.
I couldn't keep the name in Colombia. But here definitely makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay.
I think our women should. I had a friend that convinced that okay, let's give your daughter pure African name.
Mhm.
Then he suggested the wife 14, then I put a click. Daughter Lindo
Mm.
is a Swahili language which is patient. So we decided okay, we're giving the girl Lindo. We don't accept it.
Mm.
Later we do the after the
She didn't know it was an African name.
Lindo means patient, but it's not European name. This is an African name which is a Swahili.
Mm.
They say, okay, no, that one this is not from our local.
What was the final name?
Lindo.
Lingui.
Lindo.
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 No.
Dr. Lindo. South Africa.
Mm. Mm.
Lindo.
Yeah, it sounds like a name out of South Africa, and that's not Swahili. Kiswahili is spoken in Kenya, Tanzania, Eastern Congo, places like that.
So we give that name.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, that's, you know, the name issue is an interesting issue, and, you know, there are all these types of, you know, factors that go into making, you know, decisions, right? But, you know, I think just documenting what's going on and, you know, seeing how it relates to Pan-Africanism, what does it say? You know, I think that's a very Pan-African name. You know, that's my, you know, take on it. Someone else would be like, oh, well, you know, your name should have been Johnson. You understand? That's your history. But however, making a decision to do that is also history. You are now being a part of history as well. So you document, this is what we did, this is how we decided to decolonize in this way. These are the steps yet to be taken, future directions, just like how you're doing a paper. You say these are the future directions that are still left to be done. That goes to the documentation issue and other issues as well. And as we're doing documentation, before we come to documentation styles, this is what we're working on for today. Has everyone started working on your paper that you'll submit to your journal by the end of the semester? Shall I take the silence to be a unanimous yes? Of course.
But why not no? Why not unanimous no?
I'm not sure, that's what I'm asking. So, generally you can find journal articles, let's say 15 pages, 20 pages, anywhere in that area, or more. Of course, I just did an article, 39 pages. But the point is, by the end of the class, you will submit the paper to a journal. So you'll look at, you know, the specifics of the journal. You know, some journals have, you know, 8,000 word limit or whatever the case is. So you'll look at those things. So from today, if you haven't already done this, you need to decide on a topic today. Otherwise, you will be hurting yourself. And this can, of course, and should develop into what you'll be working on for your MPhil thesis, what you'll be focusing on, at least for this stage of your academic career. So think about what are you interested in? I thought Dr. Okrofianso, you submitted topics to her. You haven't done that? No? Okay, that's what we did last time, but no problem. So think about what your topics are going to be. Right, we've discussed several things in this class. I'm sure you have other classes, things that may have captured your interest. So get your topic today and start working on the paper. And you've already gotten ways to outline, how to set up your paper, how to create a research space. What's your niche? You need to start looking at the literature, what's already been done. But before you can do any of those, you have to at least start to flesh out a topic. And sometimes as you start reading, that will narrow down your topic for academic. Very good. Any questions about that process? All right, and this evening we're going to do another summary activity. We have at 5 o'clock we're doing another film showing of Theophile Obenga. And it's unfortunate that you weren't able to do the 2 articles because now you have another one added on to it. So I'm not sure how you'll be juggling all of these things and you're ending up getting behind. All right, it's best to try to knock it out when it's due. Otherwise, things will pile up. And now at the end of the class, you will say, you gave me this grade. And what I will tell you is I'm a mirror that just reflects back to you what you look like. So if you see your face and you don't think it's pretty, this is what you brought to me. I don't give grades, I just report back what you did. So that's a decision that you all made on this paper. I hope you understand. Okay. There may have been something else, but let's come straight to it. So that's 5 p.m. It's Professor Emeritus Theophile Obenga out of Congo, Brazzaville. And what he's discussing is the African origins of so-called Greek philosophy and education. So some people are under the impression that Greek started either philosophy, education, or anything else. But when you actually read what the Greek writers themselves wrote, of course, in Greek, and then you can, of course, read the translations, you will find what did Plato say about it, right? About where did they get their philosophy from? Is the Sophia in philosophy, is that even a Greek word? All right, what did they say about their own education and where did they go for education, right? So sometimes, again, none of this is objective, none of this is whatever. They intentionally will tell you, just worship Plato. He was a great man, just worship. What exactly did he say, right? When you actually look at what he says, he's pointing you right back to Africa, right? So we're going directly to the sources, the written record, in order to hash out some of these issues. Has anyone ever heard of Plato before? Socrates? Has anyone read anything by either of them?
One was Plato was a student to Socrates.
Yeah. Republic. Okay. All right. So, has anyone ever heard of Aristotle? Okay. Has anyone heard of Pythagoras? Okay. So as you were learning about Pythagoras, did you get a chance to learn that Pythagoras studied here in Africa? Good. Mm-hmm.
He studied in Alexandria.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And
Where does Pythagoras period? No, actually, that he studied here in Africa.
you are? So it seems like part of your education was cut out, perhaps intentionally. Learn about Pythagoras, but you aren't taught where he got his information from. What happens when you read about Plato but you're not taught where Plato got his information from, which he himself wrote, this is where I got my information from. I paid 6 drachma for the ferry to take me down to Naucratis. It's all documented. So how come when we're selecting, you're going to read this and not this? Why are you given this one and this one isn't given to you? They know it. It's in the complete works. You can read it online. It's even searchable. 1,000 websites are dedicated to Plato. Right? This is even before you're going into these obscure journals and obscure books. Everyone knows it.
The exhibitors of smartness.
Mm-hmm.
You're stealing all the books from the libraries and they are taking it to Greek.
That's Aristotle's 1,000 books. Mm-hmm. And claim credit for it. That's what we call plagiarism. That's what we told you not to do. That's stealing. Remember that slide? Plagiarism is stealing. So for one person who was taught by a philosopher to write books on every single subject known to human beings, you understand? So let's say I'm an engineering student, and I have one teacher, and this person knows engineering, but then I start writing books on astronomy, medicine, mathematics, every subject known to human beings. Where did I get that information from? Right? So anyway, this evening, so it's not just that generally, they came to Africa. You should be able to cite the specific sources. You should be able to know what exactly did they say. So anyway, come, and that's going to be your summary. That's going to be due next week alongside of the one that you did not turn in. When you come here and say, oh, sir, please exercise leniency, oh, please consider our situation, you will see the type of person I really am. So let's come documentation styles using the MLA, using the APA footnotes and endnotes. Now this is coming from a website called Purdue OWL, right? So you can see this online. I'll give you the link in the next one. And they actually have some slides that this is adapted from. So today we're going to cover MLA and APA. There's also another major third one, Chicago Manual of Style. You can find that there as well. We're not going to focus on that one for today. So the MLA focuses on modern language. The Modern Language Association focuses on liberal arts and the humanities. You have the APA, American Psychological Association, that's mainly in the social sciences. And then you have the Chicago Manual of Style, that's humanities and also history, specifically is known for using that one. And this is one of the links you can go to. This is, again, the Purdue OWL website. I gave it to you as a shortened link. So this will take you to the longer link, so you don't have to spend 15 minutes trying to copy down the entire longer link. So this is basically to introduce you to the basics of MLA formatting and style. And again, you can go to the longer website that's here. And let me know when you have the link, then we'll move. Are we okay? And again, that will redirect you to the longer link. So MLA, Modern Language Association style formatting, often used in various humanities disciplines, right? So we're part of the College of Humanities. Even though we're multidisciplinary and sometimes we work with people in other broad areas. So also we have the MLA Style Center. You can go to that site as well, a very short link for specifics on MLA. So this is the 8th edition that the information that we're presenting today is coming from, and is mainly for students who are writing research papers as well as scholars who are publishing professionally. Right now you're bridging that gap. You're students who are writing research papers, but you are going to publish by the end of this class. All right, submit to a journal. So MLA, it regulates the format of your document. And what you'll be doing is that you'll be looking at the journal, because the journal will specify, oh, we use MLA format. Oh no, in this journal we're using APA. In this journal we're using Chicago style. So we'll make you familiar with that. But then closer to the end of the presentation, what I'll do is I'll give you some shortcuts that technology can help to provide for you, such as citing from JSTOR, right, and importing that citation, citing from Google Scholar or Google Books and importing that citation, and also the use of citation managers, such as EndNotes, such as Mendeley, which is free, Zotero, which is also free, open source, and others. So MLA also regulates in-text citations. So when you see a citation in parentheses, you know what you're looking at. Also your works cited list, right? So you see some lists are referred to as references. In MLA, as soon as you see where it says works cited, you know that the person is using MLA style, right? So this introduces a new way to cite sources. Instead of long rules, MLA guidelines are based on a set of principles that may be used to cite any type of source, right? So 3 guiding principles: cite simple traits shared by most works. So these are your things like author, right? Like date, like title. These are things that you're going to see across various sources, various types. Remember that there's more than one way to cite the same source. Now there are standards, you know, that are generally in place that if it's a book, this is what it's generally going to look like. If it's a journal article, this is what it's generally going to look like. And then third, make your documentation useful to readers. So the point of doing a citation is so that people can follow up, right? So it's not just to do it just because we think it's pretty and whatever, that there's a point. You should be able to find the source based on the author, based on the title, based on the date, to disambiguate so the person can verify anything you say. If you say black is bad, white is good, that's universal, right? I'm going to cite this source. Well, now let me go read your source and see where you're getting it from and cross-reference it with other sources to actually find this out. So the presentation is going to cover how to format a paper in MLA style, general guidelines, first page format, section headings, in-text citation, formatting quotations, and documenting sources in MLA style, core elements and list of works cited. So this is, again, you can go to the shortened link and that will give you some of this information. You can also look at the slides that are downloadable from that website. Is everyone okay? Am I going too fast? Too slow? Too fast? Okay. All right, so again, general guidelines. Now, as you're taking notes is a skill, right? It's not every single word that comes from my mouth that you are going to write down, right? But look at the bullet points. And, you know, for example, if I say general guidelines in your own notes, write guidelines, right? Or if you can remember, you can just write guide, and then when you go back to your notes, you can flesh it out and say general guidelines, right? First page format, you can just write first page, 1 ST page, right? So this is just something that serve as kind of anchors that you can go back to remind yourself, oh, this is what it's going to cover, those 3 points, right? So I'll try to be slower, but also as you are listening, listen for the keywords, and the keywords are just there to point you back towards the general information. So basic rule for any formatting style, always follow your instructor's guidelines, right? Always follow or in this case, also the journal's guidelines or the book publisher's guidelines, right? Don't say, well, I'm just going to do it how I want to do it. You said MLA, I'll do APA. What can you do to me? You said 2 summaries, I will do 1 summary. And beg, what can you do to me? You're only the teacher. So follow your instructor's guidelines. Academic?
Rising.
Very good. So MLA paper should be typed on white 8.5 inch by 11 inch paper. Now generally here we use A4 paper, but you can set based on, in Microsoft Word or whatever word processing software you're using, you have a tab for page layout. The click of a button you can transform from one to another very easily. Double space everything. Use 12-point Times New Roman or similar font. Generally Times New Roman is preferred by many publishers and things of that nature. Leave only 1 space after punctuation, not 2 spaces. I have this issue a lot with students where sometimes they'll do 2 spaces, not even after punctuation. Sometimes in between words you have 2 spaces, 3 spaces. Don't do that. Right? Now, when you're doing your typing your paper, before you submit it, click on spelling and grammar check. Is that clear? Is everyone hearing what I'm saying? Everyone who has heard what I just said, raise your right hand. Your right hand. Your other right hand. That one. So when it comes time for you to submit your final paper, right, if you have not clicked on that spelling and grammar check, it will be very clear, right? Because there are certain things like in this one that we're saying pressure, right? We know that pressure is there, but that's also why there's a spelling and grammar check built in. And if you didn't do it, it will be painfully obvious, because there's going to be something, for any regular normal human being, there will be something that is very simple, that if you just did that, you would have caught it. Or if you even just read it over again yourself, you would have caught it, right? That one is not optional, spelling and grammar check. Now, as you're going through it, you will find that sometimes it will give you a false positive, right? Perhaps you're spelling something in the British way and it's telling you to do the American way. Then you go down to the bottom and you click English UK, and then it will stop doing that, right? Or it's something that you mean to say, but it's saying, no, rephrase it, right? So you have to also be judicious as the human who knows this is what I'm actually trying to do, right? Let's continue. Set all margins to 1 inch on all sides, right? And again, if you have a journal that's telling you something else, then you listen to the journal, but these are the general guidelines. Indent the first line of paragraphs 1/2 inch. Are we okay? So MLA style paper should have a header with page numbers located in the upper right hand corner. So you'll see some journals at the bottom center. You'll see some at the bottom right. This one for MLA format, sometimes all the journals say is use MLA format. They expect you to know all the things that are part and parcel of the MLA format. So these are some of the issues that will come up. Use italics for titles. Is that okay? Academic?
Right.
Academic?
Right.
Academic?
Right.
Oh, wonderful. Place endnotes on a separate page before the list of works cited, right? And again, this comes down to, endnotes or footnotes, right? And sometimes, again, the journal will specify, do not use endnotes, right? So you have to look at those guidelines. All right, so the first page of an MLA style paper will have no title page, right? Double space everything. List your name, your instructor's name, the course, and date in the upper right hand corner. Of course, that's for a research paper. It will not be for your journal submission. You will say, my instructor is so-and-so. Center the paper title. Use standard caps but no underlining, italics, quote marks, or bold typeface. Create a header in the upper right hand corner at the 1/2 inch from the top and 1 inch from the right of the page. So list your last name and page number here. So Kanban 1, Kanban 2, so forth and so on. Academic?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so this is a sample, right? Upper right hand corner, you see last name and page number. Then you have on the left hand side the name of the student, the instructor's name, the course, the date, center title, and you go from there. Are we okay? Academic?
Right.
That one sounded very tired. Academic?
Right.
Uh-huh. That one is better. Or you're looking tired because you're like, why do I have to do all of these things?
Yeah.
Just let me write to my paper, right? So formatting section headings. Section headings are generally optional. Headings in an essay should usually be numbered. So 1, 2. Headings should be consistent in grammar and formatting, but otherwise are up to you. So again, the main thing is consistency. Don't say for this one I will do all caps, for the next one lowercase, for the next one something entirely different. Also numbered, so all flush left with no underlining, bold, or italics, right? So you can either do it based on numbered, leveled, or unnumbered by level. So in that one, for the unnumbered by level, you'll show the leveling by indenting, right? If you're numbering them, you don't need to indent. You can just have those numbers, right? Are we okay? Are we all academic? 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 Very good. So this is the main part in terms of your citations, the in-text citations. So it's a brief reference in your text that indicates the source you consulted, right? This is where you see Kanban 2015, right? It should direct readers to the entry in your works cited list for that source. It should be unobtrusive, right? What's unobtrusive? What does that word mean? Are you okay? Unobtrusive. Are we familiar with that word? If something is obtrusive, it means it's sort of like it intrudes into the thing. You do it in bright blinking lights, hot pink, italics, bold, underline. That is very obtrusive, right? So it should just flow in with the rest of everything else, and you'll see what that looks like, parenthetical citation. All right, in general, the in-text citation will be the author's last name or abbreviated title with a page number enclosed in parentheses. You'll see examples of that. So the page number, if you mention the name of the author in the sentence, then at the end you just give the page number. If you don't mention it in the sentence, then you give the author's last name and the page number there. And then the works cited entry would look something like this, there at the bottom. So the following print source, so you have Kenneth Burke, Language as Symbolic Action, so forth and so on. So if the essay provides a signal word or phrase, usually the author's last name, the citation does not need to include that information. So again, you've mentioned the name. Humans have been described by Kenneth Burke as so-and-so. So then in your parenthetical citation, you don't need to have Burke again and 3. You already mentioned the author's name, right? It's like, yes, we're paying attention. We know you just mentioned the author's name. Humans have been described as as symbol using animals, right? So there you didn't mention Burke's name in that sentence. So therefore you need the last name and the page number.
So if you're citing from maybe the
picking the person that he has cited.
Mhm.
Do you cite back to me, or you just write it?
You'll cite the original citation and you'll say this person as cited in Burke. But some, and I've been to PhD defenses and things of that nature, some people, they want you to go to the original source and they're not happy if you've, especially if it's accessible. Now if it's someone from 1701 and whatever, they'll let it slide. But I know some who are very meticulous about that. They say if this is something that's accessible, go to the original source and read what the original source is, right? But there is a format for citing, say, this person as cited in, Burke. We should come to that here as well. So here we come to how to cite a work with no known author, right? Perhaps you've gotten a PDF from online, from a government website, from UNESCO, whatever the case is, and you want to cite it. How do you deal with that? So this is an example. So you would do it based on the title, Impact of Global Warming, right? In quotation marks 6, right? So that was perhaps done by a commission, a consortium, something of that nature. Academic? Uh-huh. That one had more, I don't know, gusto. Perhaps I caught you off guard. Oh, yes, writing. And then the corresponding entry in the list of works cited, the impact of global warming in North America, global warming, semicolon, early signs, access. So this is letting you know, when you say access, it's letting you know it's an online source, right? That's generally going to be the ones that you can't find an author for, right? Mm-hmm.
In that one, once you indicate the date you cite, you access it,
Mm-hmm.
don't you need to bring the URL?
The what?
The URL.
This is for MLA, no?
Okay.
Right. Now we'll come to that, but you've seen that before. Available from, colon, and then you give the URL. So this is giving you, just put access. And another thing that you'll notice with the MLA is that the date comes at the end of the citation. Other citation formats, you'll see the date. You have the author name, then the date, and then, so this is actually why we're going through this, so you can see the differences. So works with multiple editions, in-text example. You mentioned the names of the authors. So now you have 79, semicolon, chapter 1. All right. Authors with the same, so that's for multiple editions, right? Authors with same last names. So now you have 2 Millers. This isn't for you. But you have 2 Millers. So how are you going to disambiguate R. Miller versus T. Miller? Right? And again, this is going back to the general guiding principle that you want to make this information accessible and known to the reader, right? So this is a method of doing that. If you have 2 different Millers and you just put Miller here, how am I going to know which one, to follow up on to know whether or not you're actually citing? I work by multiple authors, right? Smith et al. You've seen this before, correct? Is where it's coming in. And again, because you have a signal word, Smith et al., that one doesn't need to come in your parenthetical citation at the end of the sentence. The authors state, so now you haven't mentioned the names of the authors, so now it has to come. This is pretty intuitive, right? It makes sense.
Yes, but others of the same name.
Mm-hmm.
There is no need, like the example you just used. You don't need to be bothered much about same surname, but then once you bring the tab, one of the authors' name, that is guaranteed.
The first author is the one that you're going to cite using et al. So you have 4 authors. You mentioned the name of the first author, right? Right. So even if you have 3 different authors named Miller, when you're using, and they're all authoring the same journal article, and I've seen actually have someone that has 2 different authors who have the same last name, just the first one will come, right? This is where you have different journal articles that have, so this one is T. Miller, an entirely different journal article is Q. Miller, an entirely different article is S. Miller, right? So here the author states so and so and so and so, but here you need the Smith et al. Now here you have another one that's generic, a 2016 study suggests. Here you have to have the author's names that come in, Strong and Ellis, right? So this is, you have the names of both of those authors in the parentheses. Multiple works by the same author. Now you see some citation styles will disambiguate based on the date, right? Or even if you have the same author writing different articles in the same year, 2008A, 2008B, the way MLA does it is by the title, right, in quotation marks, academic. Very good. So here's an example, hand-eye development, 17, too soon, 38. Elkins visual studies. So one is where you have the name of the author, Leitner, that's the first one here. And this one you don't have the name of the author, so you need Elkins, comma. Now you mentioned the name of that specific title. That should be easier. So citing multi-volume works. So in-text example, as Quintilian wrote in Institutio Oratoria. So here you have which volume, now you have the page numbers, right? So, it's very thorough just in terms of all the different types of things that you could deal with. Citing the Bible, right? You give the edition, you give, chapter, all of these, verse. So here, citing indirect sources, right? Ravitch argues that, and this is what you were asking about before I mentioned we'll come to this. So Ravitch argues that high schools are pressured. Then you have quoted in Weissman, right? So there's a set way of doing that. Multiple citations. Here again, Zender, 138, 141. So I'm looking at both of those. And here you have the ellipses. That's letting you know this one is the one that's coming from 138. From here down is 141, right? And you'll see some other citation methods are by using square brackets around those ellipses to let you know that the ellipses aren't in the original text. So works in time-based media, right? So for example, it's a audio recording or a video recording. How do I let you know the specific point of the audio recording I'm referring to? That this is done here. Buffy's promised that so-and-so, I don't know what that is. But here, this is from 3:16 to 3 minutes and 17 seconds. So a person can just go straight into that one, right? Works cited entry. So Hush. You can tell this is coming from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Created by, right? Performance by, season 4, episode 10. You give the name of the episode and the date, right? Sources without page numbers, right? So this may be a preprint or pre-press article. It hasn't yet gone to press, so therefore the page numbers haven't been assigned yet. So now how can I cite it? This is how you cite it. So mention the name Garland Thompson. Now the works cited entry will be Garland Thompson, Rosemary, Habitable Worlds, so forth and so on. Right? Are we okay? Are we academic? Academic? Very good. So here, short prose quotations, according to some, right? Then you give where you're getting that from. According to folk study, dreams may express. Now here you have the signal word, so you just here need the page number. Is it possible that dreams may express? And then here you come again. Are we okay? Are we academic? Good. So here, quoting 4 or more lines of prose, in-text example. So here you come, and now the name of the author, and then 78, right? Mm-hmm.
Is there any length of document that you can put, maybe beyond which you are not allowed to put? You have
It's generally considered bad practice to, it's not a hard and fast rule. So like, if you're going to do something that seems too long, even to yourself, and you know that the reader will see it as that, you can say, according to this author, worth quoting at length, and then, it may be 10 lines, right? Generally for quotes over, and you have different people who say different things, but generally over 4 lines, you're going to do an indented quote, and it'll be set aside. But again, you'll look at your journal, you'll look at, what the style sheet or style manual, says about it. But let's say you are writing an essay, it's 10 pages, and you have 2 pages, which is 1 long quote. Right? Some of these things are going to be logical. And when you are downgraded for that, don't say you gave me a bad grade. Say my own common sense was not in operation for this one. Right? There we go. But again, like I said, there are ways that you can do that in your own writing that, worth quoting at length is something that people will know. It's a bit long, but it's still within reasonable, something. But, and then even for that, it has to be obvious to some degree why that is worth quoting at length, right? So quoting 1 to 3 lines of poetry, lines 31 through 32, right? Stanzas 20 through 21, right? So here you're seeing that this is done with this slash, right? So that means you don't have to do it exactly as the poem appeared, this line, this meter, whatever. Again, that's what we're talking about. Use block quotation for 4 or more lines of poetry. Right, so that sets it off. A block quotation, that's indenting it as 1 block, right? As opposed to letting it flow into the rest of your paragraph. If the poem is formatted in an unusual way, reproduce the unique formatting as accurately as possible, because sometimes the person will write the poem in the shape of a flower. They're doing that intentionally for visual aesthetic appeal and those types of things. So you would lose that if you just do it in any type of way. But generally poems would just be this line, this line, this line. Then you'll just use a slash, and you'll still keep your academic. So in-text example for adding words, right? This is where you see in MLA your square brackets, who retell urban legends. This means when you do your square brackets, you're saying I'm introducing something that wasn't in the original quote. This is how I'm signaling and letting you know. I'm doing it, because otherwise it wouldn't be a complete sentence. I'm doing it because otherwise it wouldn't be clear, right? Also omitting words. Here you find the ellipsis coming, right? The whole thing is an entire paragraph. I just need something that would end up being condensed down to 1 sentence. Here's how I'm going to do it. All right, so for your works cited page, this is the general order for MLA. You start with your author, then next comes the title of the source, Then title of container, is it a book, is it a journal, is it whatever? Other contributors, right? What version of it is there, if there are multiple versions? What number of that version? The publisher's name, publication date, and then location, right? And we'll give you examples of this. So this is very succinct and very helpful. Are we okay? Okay. So each entry in the list of works cited is made up of core elements given in a specific order. This is given, that's this one, right? It means that it has been given to someone. Given in a specific order. The core elements should be listed in the order in which they appear here. Each element is followed by the punctuation mark shown here, right? So this one, full stop, or period as you may call it. Title of source, full stop, comma, 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 full stop. All right? These are very important points. And, for research papers that you're submitting to an instructor, you may get downgraded based on your, how would I put it, jacked up works cited page, right? If it's a journal, they may send the article back to you because you didn't follow the format that's laid out, right? So you want to get something published and it's ready to be published in 3 months, but now it will take 6 months because whereas it would have been ready to go, now they're sending it back to you. And now it takes time for the reviewer to come back and say, okay, now it's up to speed and these types of things, right? So this is the works cited list by author. Begin the entry with the author's last name, right, in alphabetical order, followed by a comma and the rest of the name, right? So last name first. And the rest of the name as presented in the work, right? In this element with a period or full stop as it's called in British English and Ghanaian English. Examples, and you can see this clearly, I won't say each one, but this is the format that you're going to follow, and it follows what we were mentioning on the other page in terms of the order that things are going to occur in. Right? Now you may not have all these elements. This one has all the elements mentioned, right? Volume this, number that, dates, etc. This one is a book, Oxford University Press, UP 2011, right? So there are certain ones like volume that aren't going to apply to this one. Let's focus on the title, right? Books and websites should be in italics, right? So here you can bring in the book title, and it's very clear it's the book title because it's in italics. Here again, book title in italics. Now here you have a website. Here they're bringing in the URL, and if you want to bring in the URL, this is how you do it. This one, Goldman and, I'm not sure how well you can see this, volume, number, dates, pages. So title of container. So again, this is, generically using container for whatever it is. So here you have an edited volume. So you have the author's name of that specific chapter or article in the book. And here you have, this is the book's name, edited by, right? Then you have the rest as it is in other ones. Here you have another website Now notice that it's not starting with HTTP. It's not starting with www. You just go straight into the substantive part of the URL. Right? Similar here, this is for something online. You just start off with the name of the website, then the website's URL. And that's how you keep it very academic. You're paying attention, or so we continue. Other contributors, right, such as translators, performers. So you see, this is the author, this is the container or book, whatever it is, translated by Lydia Cochrane. You know, then you have your publisher. I think we are Chile, or I'm Chile. So here you have, this is the title of whatever the episode is, right? And again, this is just giving you various examples of this. So now here we come to the version, right? Which version is it? Which, you know, also this can be put under the rubric of which edition is it? Right? Are we okay? Do we need to stand up and do Chichigule?
I want to ask you a question.
Yeah, feel free.
Yes, with the year of publication, I just want to get the distinction clear. Looks like MLA, it's always the last thing.
Yes.
And the other one,
Or it comes,
APA just comes after the author's name.
right. So this is what, you know, in that list, you have which one comes in what order, right? So that's one of the things that as soon as you look at the page, you can see that this is MLA just if you're looking for the date. Okay, version, if a source is listed as an edition or version of a work included in your citation. I think we looked at that. Now what number, right? And you find this especially in journal articles, volume this, issue that, volume this, number that, right? This is how you deal with that. And also for multi-volume books, go ahead.
No, it's not only the case that they put the title of the book in invitation.
No, that's generally for a chapter or an article. Generally the title of a book will be in italics. So this is now a book we're dealing with here, and it's here in italics. Here, this is a journal article. So a journal article is going to be in quotes. But here, this is the title of the journal, and that's going to be in italics. The title of the book, that's going to be in italics, right? The title of the series, that's going to be in italics. If it's a TV series or something like that. You okay?
The title of the journal.
Italics.
Title of the book.
Italics.
At which point does it change?
If it's an article inside of the journal, the article is going to be in quotation marks, right? The title of the journal is to be in italics. The title of the article in the journal is to be in quotation marks, not in italics, right? The title of the book, so the container, whatever the container is, whether it's a journal, whether it's a book, whatever it is, whether it's a series, that's going to be in italics, right? But now the part that's inside of it is going to be in quotation marks. Are we okay? Are we academic? 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 Yes. We're ready to win the football match. Good, so now we come down to the publisher, right? So that's coming here, Carnegie Museum of Art, Oxford, UP, that's University Press. That's one thing for University Presses, usually that's abbreviated in MLA, right? UP. Here we come down to publication dates. So we're getting close to the end. We're dealing with each one in the order that it was presented in that, I guess we can say chart or list. So here we come to publication date. The same source may have been published on more than one date, such as an online version of an original source. When the source has more than one date, use a date that is most relevant to your use of it, right? So don't say that you use the 1804 version when you actually use the 2008 one that you downloaded online, right? You can specify and say reprint or something of that nature. All right, and these are some examples of that. Now after date is location, right? So date isn't always the very last thing. So here we come down to location. Be specific as possible in identifying the work's location. And we see this isn't very clear, it's off. Modern Museum of Art, New York. So the date was 1975, Modern Museum of Art, New York. Right, here for something online, the location is the place on the web where it's located. That's the URL, right? Here we're talking about the page numbers, right? And that's the location in the context of the work, the book. And look, we finally have an African's name, Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And then you have optional elements, right? So for your works cited list, you can have other elements, the city of publication, things of that nature, the date of the original publication. This is where I was saying if you have a version from 1804 and a version from 2008, that's where the information can come in, right? So the original one was 1782. The version I'm using is 1992. Mm-hmm.
I want to be very clear. Location. If you can provide some example for us to look at it. Yes, the location.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a place for publication?
Generally speaking, yes.
Yes, okay, so let me try to.
Mm-hmm.
This one. This one.
This is the location. This one you can't see it well. So Museum of Modern Art,
Yes.
New York.
It was the,
You mentioned it.
the point that was, no, I'm trying to
connect it.
To see it,
Yeah.
yeah. When I went to presentation mode, things got shifted somehow, so it looked one way. Out of presentation mode now, it's kind of crammed. Okay, now we have optional elements. Date of original publication is what we mentioned. City of publication. Optional is the URL. So you saw one thing from the internet that didn't have the URL. It just had access. Here you are including the DOI and the URL. So again, that's optional. Also date of access. You can get more help for MLA here at these links. Or if you have excess credit, you can just call them on the phone. Are you laughing because you don't have excess credits? Are we okay? Are we academic? Good. All right, so now we come to APA. Remember we were mentioning MLA, APA in Chicago. Today we'll look at MLA and APA. And this is the shortened link that will take you to the page that has the information I'm covering and other information as well. Now, if you are starting to write your paper, and you're not sure how to cite something, what should you do?
In the course of writing,
We are not sure.
How to cite something?
I'm sure you can you put something there to indicate that you come back later to check on the stuff.
Okay. So if you come back later, how do you get the information for which you will find out how to do the citation? You have a newspaper article, a book, and you're not sure?
You have to keep the elements that you need to cite it in any way that you would, then you go and contact the right way to arrange it.
So that's where I'm getting at. How do you go and find the right way of doing it?
You check for your news.
You check for what?
Your news.
Your notes.
Other sources. Because it-
Okay. What are the other sources?
Online.
academic, scholarly ways, like what is related to what.
Okay, that's an option. I was going to say what you said, which is online. You can search for how to do it. So you can just do a search for MLA site newspaper. And probably this Purdue site will come up first, right? So you do your research, you cross-reference, you find out. Another thing that you said, which is actually another method, is let's say you are going to submit to a journal, and you're not certain how they do it, or you have a question. You can look at a previously published journal article from that same journal and see, oh, that's the template, and use that, right? So basically what you're going to do is find out, go online, go through whatever resources you have to find out how to do it correctly. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I don't want you to sit there and say, I don't know how to do it, let me just do it however. If you do that, you will have a very long and difficult life. Or short and difficult, however it comes out, it will be difficult. Find out, anytime you know that you don't know, go and find out how to do it. Are we okay? Are we academic?
Right.
Are we academic?
Right.
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 Uh-huh.
Well,
Hmm.
if you cite UTR, is it necessary to bring the ground?
What's UTR?
Like, the normal, we go like this,
URL.
Ah, okay. Hey! Wait, what? Is that the university you want to go to? You want to go to UTR? University of, what is that?
Asia.
Okay.
You have to write a tab.
Do you have to write a tab? I'm not sure what you're saying. Do you have to press the tab button and indent it, or how?
The time that you pick that maybe when you are citing, you have to state it against.
That's included under optional elements, so access by, right? And they gave examples of how to bring that access by, or access, date and this thing. Yeah. So APA, that's American Psychological Association citation style, is the most commonly used format for manuscripts in the social sciences. Now, just a brief note. So we mentioned previously about developing our own theories, our own methods, and our own things. That's what the articles that we looked at previously were dealing with. Now, another way that you are caught is by being locked into these types of citation modes. This is the way you're supposed to cite. So these are things to think about, right? Now, if you're an editor-in-chief of a journal, you can decide, in this journal, this is going to be our style. Perhaps it's not following the APA. And there are many, of the highest ranked journals in the world that have their own specific citation style, right? So these are things to keep in mind. Even the degree to which you have to follow American Psychological Association. We're not in America, right? Is there another method of doing it? MLA, well, who controls MLA, right? So these are things that you can at least keep in mind as you are following along these things. So APA, again, like MLA, regulates stylistics, in-text citations, and references. In terms of stylistics, what style of writing are you going to use? So personal pronouns where appropriate. We conducted an experiment as opposed to the authors conducted an experiment. So you'll see where, you're supposed to be, saying the author, according to so-and-so, you're supposed to make it very dispassionate and whatever. In APA, when it's appropriate, you'd say we. If you're a part of the we, then say, we. Active voice rather than passive voice. We ask participants questions. This makes it very clear of who was doing the asking. In other ones, the passive voice is preferred. They say the participants have been asked, but that makes it, questionable. Have been asked questions by the researchers. Right? Academic?
Right.
Academic?
Right.
Should we stand up? Are we okay? Should we do jumping jacks? Cartwheels? Ampe? All right, language in an APA paper should be clear, specific in descriptions and explanations, concise, condense information when you can, plain, use simple descriptive adjectives, and minimize figurative language. The most euphonious and melodious sounds could be easily abstracted as we eschew obfuscation throughout the, right? I've said quite a lot without saying anything. That one is dispreferred, as they say in linguistics. So types of APA papers, you have the literature review, and this goes back to what we touched on previously, which summarizes scientific literature on a particular research topic, right? It includes a title page, introduction, and a list of references. Now, this is an important point, whereas MLA calls that list works cited, APA is references. So at the top you see where it says references. And sometimes people can even just use that right off the bat to know which one you're using. The experimental report describes your experimental research in the area, which is of course academic. Mm-hmm. It includes a title page, abstract, and this is, what you'll see more often in academic. That's actually what I wanted to say. You'll see it more in academic writing. Title page, abstract, introduction, methods, results, and discussion sections, a list of references, appendices, table, and/or figures. Right? Now this is a very standard format for an academic paper, or for basically generally academic. Very good. If your paper fits in neither category, follow the general format, right? Consult the instructor. Also consult the APA publication manual, which has more than just these general ones that we're able to cover in the class. Now, some of the manuals are thick. If we covered every single eventuality in the manual, we'll be sitting here for the rest of the semester and only be touching on one of those manuals. And we would get 50 pages into it and we would have to stop at the end of the semester. So again, if you have any question or if anything doesn't fit into these general ones, what do? Consult, research, right? Find out. You in yourself, I don't know this. So you can either say, let me just manage it. No one will know that I don't know what it is, or actually follow up on it. Your essay should be, right, double spaced, have 1-inch margins, use 10 to 12 point standard fonts Times New Roman, and be printed on standard size paper, 8.5 by 11. Again, in our context, we're using A4 more generally. So especially if you're submitting to a journal that is, is going to be here or is going to be using A4, then that can be relaxed. But again, American Psychological Association is using the American standard, which is the 8.5 by 11. And this is a note, and we'll mention this. If you're writing a manuscript draft, APA suggests using 2 spaces between sentences to aid readability, right? And again, that's in the APA manual. Every page of your essay should, academic?
Right.
Good. Every page of your essay should include a page header, title in all caps in the upper left-hand corner, and the page number in the upper right. So that's different from MLA, which would have the last name and the page number in the upper right, right? Right. So you'll look at the differences between how they're laid out. Your essay should include 4 major sections: the title page, the abstract, main body, and references. Are we okay? Are we academic? Are we academic? Are we academic? Very good. The page header you see here, that's here. Purdue Owls, so-and-so. Title in the upper half of the page centered. The name with no title or degree and affiliation of the university. And that may not be so clear, but what it says up top is the page header, and you'll do it flush on the left-hand side of the page, then have the number flush on the right-hand side. Right, so title, flush, number, flush. So here, for the page header, do not include a running head, which would be all throughout. The abstract centered and at the top of the page, you have the title abstract there in the center, as opposed to left aligned. So this is what you're seeing here.
How do you distinguish the running header?
So it's going throughout the entire paper. That's what the running is. Write a 150 to 250 word summary of your paper in an accurate, concise, and specific manner. Right. Then also you can have the keywords underneath. Right. Number the first text page as page number 3, because you've already had, your title pages, right? Type and center, the title page, you have the abstract page, and now you're coming into the main body, so that's the 3rd page. Type and center the title of the paper at the top of the page. Type the text double-spaced with all sections following each other without a break. Identify the sources you use in the paper in parenthetical in-text citations. You also format tables and figures. Are we okay? So what you'll do is that you'll have them numbered and it will go throughout. So you'll have figure 1, map of Ghana, figure 2, whatever the case may be.
There are instances where you can have maybe figure 1.0, figure 1.1.
You could. That's not entirely necessary, but if that's what your instructor says to do, and if that's the practice of the journal, then you can do that. Right? Generally, you'll have figure 1, figure 2, figure 3. But again, you'll follow what the instructions are that you're given. Here we center the title of references. On the top of the page, do not bold it. Double-space reference entries, right? So not single-spaced throughout, double-spaced. Flush left the first line of the entry and indent subsequent lines, right? That's what you call hanging indentation. and that can be done in Word just with the click of a button. Also, you order entries alphabetically by the surname of the first author of each work. Are we okay? Are we academic? Good. Mm-hmm.
Get back to the slide before this one.
Mm-hmm.
The center, the title, references at the top of the page,
Mhm.
which means the reference should always be the center.
Yes. That's what we're saying, center the word references here at the top. Are we okay?
Before you buy the news, let reference before you buy the news come.
Say again?
When I'm presenting something and I have reference for that perspective, do I have to buy the expense on top before I do the presentation again? Or is it the final reference?
This is the final reference that we're talking about, the references page. So just like in MLA, at the end you have your works cited page. Here in APA, at the end you have your references page. Are we okay?
Once again,
Mhm.
do not bold it.
Yes.
But then looking at what we have,
Mhm.
it's not bold.
No, it's not bold.
Like, what we always present is always
Yeah, so this is APA, so it's not bolded. Or does it look bold to you?
No, some of these things, if you are not very careful, you make some little decisions and then you get penalized for it.
It's true.
What I have been doing is the name. I've been putting the name, but the rest of it, that's not.
No.
It's wrong.
Yes. This is APA. So if APA is saying do it in this way and you're supposed to follow APA, you know, sometimes you'll say this way looks pretty to me. But that's not, you know, what you do. You follow whatever the thing is.
No,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bit lost.
Okay.
At what point do you underline these things? I'm just trying to get something I've done in the past. At
So-
what point do you underline the title?
Right. So what I'm going to do, I'll take you through various different ones. And what I have a software called EndNote. Right now we're looking at MLA, APA. Those are the main ones that you'll be using. What I'll do is I'll show you what the same citation looks like in MLA, APA, Chicago, Harvard, so forth and so on. And you'll see where they're different because you've seen it in other ways, but now you'll be able to understand this is the exact same book, but as soon as you change it. And this is one of the reasons why I use a citation manager, because let's say I submit to this journal and, you know, I may say, you know what, I don't want to be on that journal, I want to submit it here. I withdraw it here. Or they may say, you know what, it's not fitting the scope of our journal. Now, I did it in MLA for this journal. Now, this new journal that I will submit to is going to be APA. So if I use a citation manager, I just click the drop down and go from MLA, I click APA, it will automatically format all of the things for me. Right? So
The article you sent us about 2 weeks ago is APA.
I don't remember. I have to look back.
That
What-
one said,
Eurocentrism in the social sciences, or which one? Or on the theory of I don't recall. I don't recall. I have to look at it, and when I look at it, I can tell you, I can actually pull it up before we close.
You have also a number of situations like central ones.
Mhm. Right.
You don't think that in the.
I'll look at it because I used EndNote, which was the automatic one, and it's based on what the journal told me to do. So I just went to EndNote, and it may be APA, and I just clicked on it, and whatever I clicked on it, that's the one that they were requesting.
Because you can use sometimes as a reference also.
Yeah, that's what he was even saying. Look at what has been submitted there, and do it. So for that one, I looked at the journal, and it said do it in this way. I just clicked the drop down. So offhand, I would not be able to tell you. But these are the things that when you do it in an automated way, it's just simple.
I also have, sometimes sometimes when you are reading a text, the person may not cite it, but after the reading, you analyze and then you give the citation and maybe you write 1, 2, 3, that kind of thing. Is it applicable to this?
I'm not clear on what you're saying. What are they doing?
The footnote, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's citing using footnotes, and we'll come to that. Footnotes and endnotes will close out dealing with that.
Yeah, see,
We've seen one reference here on the Anansi.
Mm-hmm.
Like you were comparing the story in the Akan community and that of
The Yoruba.
Yoruba, yes. And you have the references here, but it seems the reference was golden here.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems that was what he was trying to ask if
Right.
there is any difference.
So again, you'll follow whatever your journal is telling you to do, right? So if the journal says do it in this way, you follow what the journal tells you to do. Now some will just say use a general APA. Some will tell you use general MLA. But then sometimes, like I did my doctorate in linguistics, as you know, they have a departmental style sheet, which isn't any of the ones that are out there. So it looks sort of like the in-text citation looks sort of like what Chicago in-text citation is, but then there are other things that are only specific to that department. So again, if you have an instructor who tells you do it in this way, do it that way. If you're submitting to a journal, and this is relevant for all of you because you will be submitting to a journal, don't say I'm doing MLA regardless of what you say. Don't say I'm doing APA regardless of what you say, right? If you're not clear, usually most journals will have a style sheet. You just download it and it will tell you. Some will even, if you're using an automated system like EndNote, they will have a download. You download it, it will import that style sheet into, that one. That's for some very prestigious journals that have their own, styles. Sometimes if they don't have any of those, you can look at the previous, authors who have submitted to that journal and do it the way that they did it. But all of these are you finding out the way that's specific to where you're submitting, right? And, one way that you can do, just go online, type MLA, citation format. Or if it's a specific thing, I'm citing a magazine, type MLA magazine. Probably this same Purdue OWL site will come up and it'll show you examples of how to do it. And you use that as a template to do your own, right? So we continue, capitalize all major words in journal titles, right? Contemporary Journal of African Studies, of would not be capitalized, but the others are major words. Italicize titles of longer works such as books and journals. Do not italicize, underline, or put quotes around the titles of shorter works such as journal articles or essays in edited collections, right? This is different from MLA, right? No quotes, none of these other. And they're giving you an example. And this is where we're talking about the date coming earlier. This is APA, standard APA format. This is the name of the article in the journal. This is the journal's name, italics. Here you have the volume, issue, page numbers, right? Now, I had one student who I was reading something that he wrote, and he did this.
Page 38.
No, it seems this one is just a page. And it doesn't use the whole page, indicating that there are so many pages. That's
Very good. And when I asked him why he did that, he said, I've just seen people do that. He didn't understand that this means single page. And this means more than one page. You think you already did that, right? And for some, and again, you'll look at the journal, the style sheet, the rules. Some will have you write out 38, 39. Some will use what's called implicature, which means 38 through 9. It's implied that I'm saying 39. I'm not saying page 38, now go all the way back to page 9. But again, follow what you are told, to do. Mm-hmm.
From what you've given us, with APA, you don't need to bring the initial fee.
No, no. So that's what you saw in MLA. You're talking about for the page numbers? No. So that's what you saw in MLA. That's the difference between MLA and APA. So APA is a complex system of citation. When compiling the reference list, the strategy below might be useful. Identify the type of source. Is it a book, a journal article, a web page? Find a sample citation for this type of source. That's exactly what we're saying. If you don't know, don't just say, I want to do it in bold because bold is pretty. I like italics and I like pink fonts, so everything I'll do in pink italics. No, you will suffer. And this is a very good reference. Usually anytime you type anything, this website will come up. The Purdue OWL APA guide or whatever. Mirror the sample, that means use that sample as a template. Anytime they put the page number here for APA, you know that's where your page numbers go because you're following APA format. All right, so forth and so on. Make sure that the entries are listed in alphabetical order and that the subsequent lines are indented. Let's continue. In-text citations help readers locate the cited source in the references section of the paper. So last year for this class, I had students submit using APA, right? No, not for this class, for a different class. I told them use APA. And so now they have to learn how to do it using APA. Someone said, oh, well, in another class I used MLA. I said, what did I say? So if your instructor tells you use MLA, use MLA. If your instructor tells you use APA, use APA. If your journal tells you use Chicago, Turabian, Harvard, whatever they're saying do, that's what you're supposed to do.
Please, I want to know the difference between bibliography and then reference.
All right, so reference are things that you actually refer to, right? If you didn't refer to it in your paper, it will not come in the references. Bibliography is everything relevant to this theme or subject or topic, and it may or may not be cited by me in this paper, right? So you can have an entire book publication which is just a bibliography, right? Bibliography of all collected works of whoever, Martin Luther King. So now every single book that has anything to do with Martin Luther King is going to be part of this bibliography, and there doesn't have to be any writing in front of it. But references means I've referred to this source, this source. So that means every single time you cite it in text, it must show up in the reference and vice versa. If it shows up in the reference, there must be an occurrence within the text of what you've written.
Because at what point does it become necessary to give the information?
So if, say you're doing a paper and let's say it's going to be something like a literature review, and your instructor says, I want you to compile a bibliography. You've done your literature review, yes, wonderful, but I want you to compile also a bibliography of everything that has to do with this subject. All right? So again, whether or not, and again, a bibliography can be a standalone thing. There's no paper, there's no essay. It's just everything that has to do with this topic. Mm-hmm.
Because I remember I was speaking to someone, the person actually said that sometimes works that have not been fair. But the person said with the bibliography, it is always in alphabetical order.
Mm-hmm.
But with the reference, it's like, and I've seen books where it's like most of the references are mixed, not in alphabetical order. No, not all. I've seen most books that are not.
Bring me a copy of that book.
Okay, I'll check it.
Yeah. Yeah. The only other type of ordering may be by date, but usually that's if you have multiple authors, you know, it's the same author with multiple volumes, then you'll still have it alphabetically organized overall, but within this single author. So it's 5 articles by Miller. You. 5 articles by Miller. Now I'm sorting those based on the date that they came out. This one 83, this one 87, this one. Right, other than that, I'm not sure what type of system that book is using.
Assuming if you are writing something on customary practices, and then maybe about accounts, and then you didn't use a particular book, but then as a matter of fact, after you done your reference, is it necessary you try to draw a link to maybe as you submit things about these customary practices of other cultures or music can be found out from these bibliography?
So, where did you get the information from? Is it generic knowledge? If it's general knowledge, like the sun rises in the east or appears to do so, right? You don't have to cite a source for that. If you say the moon is full, you don't. But if it's something that you got from somewhere, there are ways to cite personal communication. There are ways to cite, I had a conversation with someone. I'm going to cite that as my personal communication. Where did you get the information from? If it's not written anywhere, you're the first person to document this phenomenon. You're the first person to document the language. Then, as you are citing, where you got it from, that will be clear that this book is the very first one. There hasn't been any person to write on this thing. Now, even if there hasn't been any person to write on this thing, there's still going to be some type of literature review that you're going to do. Who else has documented languages in general? So you'll cite whatever they wrote about what they're doing. I hope you follow. But, it's clear that no one has ever written on the subject. But if you make that claim, it had better be true. You understand that? To do that, that means you've done a thorough enough literature review, to know that no one has ever touched on this. Right? If you say that and it's not the case, you'll have problems with, people accosting you, upbraiding you for not doing your thorough literature review, or worse, that you've plagiarized. You said it hasn't been done before, but look at all these people who have done it before. Academic?
Right.
Good. For quotations and closed close paraphrases, provide the author's name, date of publication, and a page number. Right? That's what we talked about. Summaries, paraphrases, so forth and so on. And I hope for your summaries you included a citation. Because the point of the whole thing is that when you summarize and when you paraphrase, you're supposed to have a citation of the original source. I hope everyone did that.
I completed this one.
Once at the beginning.
Perfect.
Okay, we will see what you did, but for the sake of time. Again, provide the author's last name and year of publication in parentheses. What we saw before were the same basically in principle as the MLA. Caruth, you mentioned the name. Right after that you have the date. Right? And then at the end, the name and date don't come again. You have the page 11. If it doesn't come in the course of the sentence, then you have Caruth, 1996, page 11. Provide the author's last name and year of publication in parentheses after a summary or a paraphrase, which is what you did here, I hope. Include the author's name in the signal phrase, followed by the year of publication in parentheses, right? So Higone et al., 1987, Marcus. So anytime the author's name comes, basically. When including a quotation in a summary or paraphrase, also provide a page number in parentheses after the quotation, right? You've mentioned the name, you've mentioned the date. Now at the end, what page? Are we okay? Introduce quotations with signal phrases according to Xavier 2008, page 3. Xavier argued that, so-and-so, page 3. I use signal verbs such as acknowledge, contended, maintained, responded, reported. All this is letting you know it was done by a human being. And it's signaling that I'm citing, I'm referring to whoever did this. Use the past tense or the present perfect tense of verbs and signal phrases when they discuss past events. So maintained, or so-and-so maintains, so-and-so states. Either one can be used. When the parenthetical citation includes 2 or more works, then you use a semicolon, right? Author's name, date, semicolon, author's name, comma, date. When citing a work with 2 authors, use the signal phrase, or in the signal phrase, use and between the author's name. So that's as opposed to the ampersand sign, right? And you'll see when to use it. In parentheses, use the ampersand sign between the names. Are we okay? Are we academic? Are we academic? Are we academically? Good. I wanted to know whether you would say writing still when I varied it small. Okay, when citing a work with 3 to 5 authors, identify all authors in the signal phrase or in parentheses, right? In subsequent citations, however, that's the first one. In subsequent citations, use only the first author's last name followed by et al. In the signal phrase or in parentheses. Are we okay? When citing a work with 6 or more authors, identify the first author's name followed by et al. Right? Previously we said 3 to 5. This is about 6 and more. Say it again.
No, I was thinking the article on there was some reason that social science the last 3 years.
3 authors.
Yeah.
Usually, so when we're saying using et al., that's for 3 to 5 authors. The first one, if you're following APA format, the first time you cite 3 to 5 authors, you mention the names of each one of the authors the first time. Each time after that, you use et al.
That's what I did, but the rest of the information was not provided.
Oh, you're saying for here in your pen? Okay, okay. I'll see what you did, so don't worry. When citing a work with 6 or more authors, identify the first author's name followed by et al. Right? That's 6 or more. And we had a few other things I wanted to cover, but for time, I think we'll just have to conclude this and then start off, not tomorrow, next week's class with some of the other things. The other things that I wanted to cover are shortcuts. You don't have to memorize all of these things. You can go to Google Scholar, you can click Cite and download the citation. Right? You can go to JSTOR, click Cite and download the citation in the format that you need it in. If you click on Google Scholar, it will show you this is what MLA format uses, this is what APA format. Just highlight the one you need and insert it there. Right? And again, the software, some are automated where it does all of it for you. If you need to convert from one to the other, it's like that. Are we okay? So I'll show you some of those things. Those are the things that I use. I don't memorize all of these things in my head. All right, but we'll come back. One of the challenges with Google Scholar is sometimes it will give you an incomplete citation. So, right, so it may not have the location. Then you'll have to go find out where the location of whatever university press is, Ibadan University Press, right? Guess where? It's in Ibadan. When citing a work of unknown author in the signal phrase, cite the first word of the title followed by the year of the publication in parentheses. Right? Titles, You use articles and chapters in quotes. Books and reports you italicize. When citing an organization, mention the organization the first time you cite the source in the signal phrase or the parenthetical citation. Data collected by the Food and Drug Administration, right? Not a single author, but an organization. If the author has a well-known abbreviation, include the abbreviation in brackets the first time the source is cited, then only use the abbreviation in later citations. This is very, very common in academic writing. Very, very common in academic. Good. When citing authors with the same last names, use first initials with the last names. Here's what we mentioned as well for APA, right? When citing two or more works by the same author and published in the same year, use lowercase letters, ABC after the year of publication, to order the references is what we were talking about before, right? When citing interviews, letters, emails, etc., and you can cite all of those, you shouldn't say, oh, well, it was an email, there's no way to cite it. No. Include the communicators, and again, this is what we're talking about, personal communication. Include the communicator's name, the fact that it was personal communication, and the date of the communication. So there's a set way to do that. If someone was in the hallway and said, all Akan people do that, you need to cite it, there's a way to cite that. AP Smith claimed so-and-so. Do not include personal communication in the reference list. Right? When citing an electronic document wherever possible or whenever possible, cite it in the author, date, style. If electronic source lacks page numbers, locate and identify the paragraph number or paragraph heading. Right? This is, again, helping the reader find that what you're saying is true. It's verifiable. This was written so-and-so by such and such. So APA system uses, a system of 5 heading levels. So the first level, centered, bold, upper, and lowercase headings. That's centered, of course. Second is left aligned, bold, upper and lowercase headings. Third, indented, lowercase. Fourth, indented, boldface, italicized. Fifth, indented, italicized, lowercase, heading with a period or a full stop. Here's an example of the 5-level heading system. All right. So what you just saw in prose, now you're looking at demonstrated for you as part of your academic. Good. Do we see? Of course, you're not going to have a photogenic memory. Is that the word? That's not what I'm looking for. Photographic memory. Photogenic is looking nice in pictures. Obviously, the class is going on long. But it's okay because it's all academic. Good. Label tables with an Arabic numeral and provide a title. The label and title appear on separate lines above the table, flush left in single space. Right? So there's a set way to do this for APA. We have 10 more slides, so we're going to move. Label figures with an Arabic numeral and provide a title. The label and the title appear on the same line below the figure flushed left, right? And this is the example that you see down here. And again, you can consult these ones for additional resources on APA style, either the Purdue OWL site or the apastyle.org site. And these are important because, again, these are the ones that you're going to encounter the most likely in your academic writing.
What about like Twitter?
Right, so when you go to the website, it will give you examples of how to do that. So Twitter,
It's
yes,
possible.
yeah, it's possible. anything online is possible. So regardless of what the specific website is, there are ways to cite it. Okay. And we're going to close out the next 8 slides on endnotes and footnotes, and we'll wrap it up. Are we okay here? Let's go back. So MLA endnotes and footnotes. Because long explanatory notes can be distracting to readers, most academic style guidelines, including MLA and APA, recommend limited use of endnotes and footnotes. However, certain publishers encourage or require note references in lieu of parenthetical references. So say instead of doing in-text citations in parentheses, for our journal, use footnotes or use endnotes. MLA discourages extensive use of explanatory or digressive notes. So you put a footnote here, then you have a paragraph underneath that says, in Ghana, all people experience doomsday and they don't like it, and that doomsday means right? So it's saying that type of thing is discouraged. If it's important enough to mention, you would put it in the main thing, the main text. MLA style does, however, allow you to use endnotes or footnotes for bibliographic notes, which refer to other publications your readers may consult, right? So you're not necessarily citing a quote from this thing, you're saying, see this, see that. The following are some examples. So pretend that these are endnotes underneath your line at the bottom of the page, right? So see Blackmer, especially chapters 3 and 4. This is letting the person know you've read this, you've consulted it, you know why it's relevant, this is why you should read it. For an insightful analysis of this trend. On the problems related to repressed memory recovery, so this is your second endnote, it should be clear, right? Academic? You needed that. I saw this one. Academic. There's nothing like academic writing to keep you sprightly. Numbering endnotes and footnotes in the document body. Endnotes and footnotes in MLA format are indicated in text by superscript Arabic numbers after the punctuation of the phrase or clause to which the note refers. Some have argued that such an investigation would be fruitless. You put your endnote and now the person knows look down or look to the bottom of the page or look at the end of the article or essay in order to find out who those people are. Scholars have argued for years that this claim has no basis. Who? That's where you put your endnote, so the scholars no basis. Here you're going to put your superscript numeral. Now it's going to come as a footnote or an endnote depending on what it is. Do not use asterisks or angle brackets or other symbols for note references. So just asterisks here. It should be numbered. The list of endnotes and footnotes, either of which for papers submitted for publication, should be listed on a separate page as indicated below, should correspond to the note references in the text. Formatting endnotes and footnotes, the endnotes page. For MLA, it recommends that all notes be listed on a separate page entitled Notes, right? Is that clear? Separate page. Center, no formatting. Use note only if there is only one note. The notes page should appear before the works cited page. That's important. You don't just put it wherever you decide. This is especially important for papers being submitted for publication, which is what all of your papers will be at the end of the semester. Academic? Are you excited about your academic? Academic? You say, yes, I'll submit. I'm in the big leagues now. Yes. The notes themselves should be listed by consecutive Arabic numbers that correspond to the notation in the text. Notes are double-spaced. The first line of each endnote is indented 5 spaces. Subsequent lines are flush with the left margin. place a period and a space after each endnote number. Provide the appropriate note after the space. And then footnotes below the text body. The 8th edition of the MLA Handbook does not specify how to format footnotes. See the MLA Style Center for additional guidance on this topic. We're getting close to the end. Academic. Footnotes and endnotes. APA does not recommend the use of footnotes and endnotes because they are often expensive for publishers to reproduce. However, if explanatory notes are still prove necessary to your document, APA details the use of 2 types of footnotes, content and copyrights. So now we're to APA. When using either type of footnote, insert a number formatted in superscript following almost any punctuation mark. Footnote numbers should not allow dashes, and if they appear in a sentence in parentheses, the footnote number should be inserted within the parentheses, and these are examples of that. That's what they're mentioning in terms of in the parentheses, right? Content notes provide supplemental information for your readers. When providing content notes, be brief and focus only on one subject. Try to limit your comments to one small paragraph. Content notes can also point readers to information that is available in more detail elsewhere. This is what we were mentioning here. See Blackmore, especially so-and-so. Copyright permission notes, and this is it. If you quote more than 500 words of published material, or you think you may be in violation of fair use copyright laws. Fair use is what academics refer to. You know, this is something that's in a published source, but I'm just doing it for academic purposes. There's fair use. You can read up on what that is, right? So if that's in question, you must get formal permission from the author. All other sources simply appear in the reference list. So one way you get around it is by saying I'm referring to this. It's not mine. I know it's not mine for fair use for academic uses. I'm just going to refer to the person who owns this thing. Now, when it comes to things for profit, like I'm publishing a book and I'm using someone else's photo or figure or table, especially in those cases, you will need to go and get permission, right? That's going beyond just your academic thing and perhaps a journal article where you're not getting revenue or things of that nature. Follow the same formatting rules as with content notes for noting copyright permissions. Then attach a copy of the permission letter to the document, right? I went to this person, they gave me permission. I have this in the email. I have this as an attachment, as a PDF, as a signed fax, whatever the thing is. If you are reproducing a graphic, chart, or table from some other source, you must provide a special note at the bottom of the item that includes copyright information. You should also submit written permission along with your work. Begin the citation with note. Note from title of the article by W. Jones and R. Smith. Then you go into it. Copyright holder reprinted with permission.
With the content notes, can you explain?
So this is copyright note. So you have content note, you have copyright note. If you're giving who the copyright holder is, that is now a copyright note. This is explaining how to do your copyright note. Content is saying, for more information, see this person, see that person. That's not copyright. All right.
So there are instances, if you are using a certain data, you have like, for instance, if it's a statistical data, then this was provided by US Census Department. You put that one in parentheses, and as you display, because I've seen a couple of documents.
Are you asking, is it going to be copyright or? Especially if it's a graphic, if it's a table, if it's a figure, if it's any of those types of things, and you're just getting it from here, you're doing it from there. Now, some ways to try to say, all right, if I can't get the permission from the copyright holder is dead, or whatever the case may be, you may come up with your own table, right? You'll still refer to who produced it originally, but you can't get written permission from the person anymore unless you can perhaps appeal to the publisher or something of that nature. But in some type of extenuating circumstances, you would give the reference, but then you would produce your own thing and say, you know, the idea is that it's inspired by this, but I'm not just copying it wholesale. I'm going to give a reference. This is going to be under fair use, right? So in some of these things, you can use your own judgment. In other cases, you can ask the publisher of the journal or of the book, you know, how to go about it. But whatever you do, you would definitely have to cite that it's not your own thing. And then, you know, depending on the nature of it, then you would still have to say this is the owner of the copyright. Okay? Are we okay? Are we still academic? Are we still academic? Academic? Very good. And that's all we have for today. Any other thoughts, questions, or concerns? Go take a nap, go get something to eat because you have your summary at 5 that you're responsible for. Say again?
I'm going to listen to the presentation and write the summaries as we begin.
I was actually had in mind for you to do it this way, to submit it, type it and submit it. So what you'll be doing is you'll be doing your notes as you're there. Then you'll do your notes into something like this. So as you're doing your notes, anything that is quotable, you'll make the quote. Anything that's notable, you'll make the note. And then you'll provide it in a form that is also going to be using summaries. It's going to be using paraphrasing. It's going to be citing. And for this one, let's use APA. Are we okay? Okay. Does anyone have a lecture at that time?
We had slave trade at that time, but then we had an estimate.
Okay. So be sure to make it because, again, this is part of, it's not just to be mean to you. It's to get you to learn the skill, but also the content is very relevant to everything we're discussing in here, right? Okay. As we close, any comments, questions, thoughts, or concerns? Is everyone okay? Everyone okay? Is everyone still academic? Good.